Welcome back, everyone, to the channel. Welcome back to your Halloween Countdown Series 2020. Of course, I am Zach, your host here on the Yo Bro Nation YouTube channel. And this is the review for Halloween 2018. We are just a few more weeks away from Halloween, and this little countdown's going to continue. Of course, it's an unconventional countdown. I know, I said Susie would be here for this, but Susie's working hard, and Susie's a little tired, so Susie's getting a break today. Plus, Susie's working on her own video that, well, it's going to be a special thing, but she's working on her own video, so. But I would like to welcome everyone back to the channel. Hope it's brighter. Hope everyone can see a little better. Hope the ambiance is better. But of course, I am reviewing Halloween 2018. I love this freaking movie. I'm just going to say it. I freaking loved this movie. Of course, this was a Blumhouse film that came out in 2018. Produced and scored by John Carpenter and directed by David Gordon Green. Of course, stars Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, Judy Greer as Karen, Mandy Matichak, how do you say her name? I don't know, as Allison, Will Patton as Officer Hawkins, Nick Castle and James Jude Courtney as Michael Myers, and of course, Haluk Bilginer, I don't know how to pronounce his name, as Dr. Sartain. That's the main cast. But this movie, man, is it good. It just, that's all I can think when I see this movie. And I literally just finished watching it simply for this review so I could take some better notes. But it is such a fantastic movie. It really is. The whole premise. Now, for those who don't know, Halloween 2018 takes place 40 years after the original. And anything that came, Halloween 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Resurrection, H2O, none of those count. They are all no longer canon in this timeline. So this one is the actual sequel to the first one, if that makes sense. And of course, now that I'm waiting for Halloween Kills to come out, I had to get this. Now, if you remember right, yes, I did do a review of this for my 2018 Halloween special. But it wasn't, to me, a proper review. It was just more or less me just kind of throwing my thoughts out, trying to fill in dialogue for a film that was, quite frankly, not that awesome. So, I wanted to come back and revisit this movie, and I guess give it more. Give it a better chance, right? Wow, my phone is going off. Of course it's going off. Why wouldn't it? So the film starts off with Dana, played by Rhiannon Reese, and Aaron, played by Jefferson Hall, as they go to interview Michael. And as they're talking to him, they're trying to get him to speak, and they pull out the mask. Aaron does. He pulls out the mask, and you start to notice all the inmates are like starting to freak out, almost like as if it's like this supernatural feeling, right? This supernatural aura that follows the mask. But, you don't know for sure, right? And then that leads you into the intro of the movie, which, being scored once again by John Carpenter, and it being almost like the original opening to the movie from the first one, except you see the pumpkin like reanimating, which is really cool to watch and was really well done. But it's also as if that's Blumhouse's and David Gordon Green's way of saying, hey, we are bringing life back to this franchise, what was a dead franchise, and we're like bringing the life back. I don't know how many people thought of that, and I'm sure some people did. I'm sure more than a few people thought about that. But that's kind of what I felt when I saw that. It's like, oh, wow, yeah, that's That's a really awesome way of looking at that and thinking about that. So that's kind of what I came up with. But then, after that's over, we go to seeing Dana and Aaron then going to interview Lori, where, they talk to her about, so do you believe in him? And she's like, well, what are you talking about? They're like, the boogeyman. She's like, Meytal is a human. Meytal is a person. And, there's no boogeyman, which she's lying to them. And they're offering to pay her for this interview. But they talk to her about Meytal and how he's being transferred. She says, good, because he's going to be locked away forever. And then she makes them leave because they asked her to come with her. Seeing Lori deal with her PTSD from what happened to her 40 years ago is interesting. Knowing people who've had PTSD, knowing that I myself have a form of PTSD, maybe not even to, definitely not to the severity that she has it, but to see it's very interesting. And that really plays well into the dynamic with her family. You get introduced to Karen and Allison and the dad, who's played by Toby Huss, who is kind of a pushover, really, when you really start to watch and see the character and how he reacts. But seeing how they react to Lori and how she's dealing with everything, you see it through different points throughout the movie. I really do. I really like seeing the family dynamic with all of them. But it is established pretty early when Allison's walking around with some of her friends, Vicky and another boy, Vicky's boyfriend, I believe. Wasn't that her brother who did that? And she's like, no, that was just a rumor. So they're immediately killing. No, Michael's not her brother, which was the original, plan for John Carpenter. They weren't meant to be brother and sister. And then the guy's like, wow, that's got to be scary. Just some random stranger hunting you down, trying to kill you. That's, way scary. And when you really think about it, yeah. When it was revealed that Meytal was the brother, it did kind of take away. Now, as someone who loves the Halloween franchise, it doesn't bother me as much to see that being the case, but I can understand where others kind of have an issue with that. So then we see Allison at school, and they do this more than once, where they take a shot from the 1978 Halloween, and they transfer it over into this. So you get this one scene in particular, which I really do like. But you see Allison sitting in her classroom, same exact spot that Lori sat, and she looks out the window. But instead of seeing Meytal, you see Lori kind of standing out there, which then cuts to a scene where you see the dynamic between her and her grandmother, Lori and Allison. And it's different than it is with Karen. But you see in the movie how Karen was raised and why Karen feels the way that she does towards her mother, even though Lori was trying to do her best to take care of her. You do get it. You see Aaron and what was her name? Jesus Christ. Aaron and Dana. You see them listening to some evidence, and you hear the voiceover of Loomis, which is done by a voice actor who was just replicating his voice. But yes, I know someone wanted to see this shirt. So yes, it's a Baby Yoda Halloween shirt for those who wanted to ask. But you hear his voiceover where he's talking about, there's no point in keeping this man alive. You have to kill him. Once his vitals are gone, incinerate him immediately. Even though that's not Donald Pleasance doing the voice, to hear Loomis's voice, especially when you are introduced to Dr. Sartain, who is not Loomis, but he's supposed to be our Loomis. Especially considering the ending, it's just not the same. So hearing Loomis's voice, talking about the trial, and you see the trial pictures of Loomis talking to the judge and to whoever, talking about, look, I don't want this man to be alive. He needs to die. And that's his whole thought process. And again, you see more of Lori's PTSD in this movie, seeing her deal with it. And you see how she's prepared, and again, how she's trained Karen, all for this time to see her with Meytal, just hammering it hard. Of course, that's really evident when you see her waiting on the bus that's supposed to take Meytal, and you're seeing the inmates reacting to Meytal, and they're all getting on the bus, and you see her drinking with a gun in her hand, and she's ready to go kill him. but she's breaking, and you see it. It's her. She has not recovered from what happened to her in 1978. Then you get to the gas station scene where Dana and Aaron are there. And it is a brutal scene. Not as brutal as it gets, but you start to see the level of violence that Michael's going to have. Again, this is a I haven't said it, but this is a non-spoiler review. I'm not going to spoil any of this. Maybe a few things here or there, but nothing that's of, major significance. You get introduced to, you've already been introduced to Vicky, but then you get introduced to Vicky, who is babysitting this kid named Jawiin. That kid is awesome. He's one of the absolute best parts of this movie, even though he has such a small role. But this kid takes no shit from her. He is definitely not your Tommy Wallace kid, all right? He's not Tommy. He's not the other little girl. He is not one to cover or to mess with. And like I said, you're seeing the escalation of Michael. And you see that throughout this movie. When you start to see some of these kills, when you're actually seeing them, or even the aftermath of them, like with the gas station scene, when you see the gas station attendant, and you keep moving on, the level of violence that Michael is so much more vicious in this movie, just how he is. Like, even to the point, I'm not going to give the scene away, he kills a kid. And it makes you wonder, where does Michael draw the line? Where does he draw the line? And you don't really know. But everything is much more gruesome. The gas station attendant, seeing the scene with the officers towards the end of the movie, it's just like, wow, this man is much more violent than he was in the other movies, and it's very, very apparent. And as you're getting through to this movie, and I'm not really going over specifics of the movie, because if you've seen the movie, you kind of know what's happened. When you're getting to it, when you're getting to the third act of this movie, first, something in the second act that kind of bothers me, and that's the plot with the boyfriend. Seeing how he's this really nice kid, and you see how he acts in the second act at the Halloween party at the high school. And it's nothing like his character. It kind of bothers me. It kind of makes me just, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I don't get it. So she leaves, which is, I guess it's meant to set her up to leave the party, to lead her towards the third act. We're getting into the third act. So, you're seeing Laurie no longer being the victim in any of this. And you're seeing how she's made her house into like a fortress, which is really, really cool, honestly. And you see in this third act, you see her and Karen are badasses, even though they butt heads, right? They're butting heads, but she's prepared Karen for all of this. And I really think that's pretty awesome. I think how that was done is really well. I want to talk about the cinematography real quick. I'll get to it. I'll wait on that. But yeah, you see Laurie's no longer the victim. She is now the hunter once Michael's into the house. Excuse me. And I talked earlier about kind of seeing scenes that were similar to the scenes in the first Halloween. There's another particular one here in the third act where you see Michael's fighting off Laurie. She's shot off part of his hand, and he tosses her out of a window off of the roof, and she hits the ground. And much like in the first movie where Dr. Loomis is looking over and then Michael is gone, Michael gets distracted, looks back, Laurie has vanished. Again, it goes to that hunting mentality where she's no longer the victim. She's now the hunter, and she is hunting Michael in this movie. And it's freaking awesome. I love that aspect. I love to see the transformation of Laurie from victim to, no, MFer, I'm coming for you, dude. I love that. So you get to the ending. All three ladies have gotten there. Karen, Allison, and all of them. And they're all fighting off Michael by the end of this movie. And I'm not going to give it away, but it has something to do with like her. And most of you who've seen this, or most of you watching this, have probably seen this movie. But it does involve her little basement area that she set up, her little trapdoor area. And there is a scene with Karen, when Michael's getting into it. And this isn't a big spoiler. It's just a cool scene to show how badass Allison is because of Lori. But she's got this gun and I can't do it. Mom, I need you, Mom. And Michael comes through and she goes from cry face to gotcha. And she shoots the motherfucker. And it's wonderful. It's a great scene, and it shows how, yes, she resents her mom, but she gets it now, and she understands, no, my mom was right. I gotta do this. I've gotta fight this guy off. But the way the ending goes to where what happens, but you don't see it. And it's left you open for a potential sequel, but you don't actually see what happens to Michael. All you get is at the end of the end credits, you just hear Michael breathing. And you hear Michael breathing over the start of the credits, before the credits. It's great. There are a couple Easter eggs in this movie that was really cool. You see some kids when they're trick-or-treating, when the trick-or-treating is going on, with some masks that are very, very similar to the Silver Shamrock masks from the third movie. And I thought that was pretty cool. There's a twist. Okay, there's a twist in this movie towards the end, at the beginning of the third act, that just kind of didn't make sense and maybe was a little unnecessary. If you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it seems very unnecessary and just kind of is not there. But overall, I love this movie. Like I was going to say earlier, the cinematography is beautiful. The way this is shot, the color choices, the palette of colors that they choose to do certain scenes, especially when Michael is walking down the street in Haddonfield where all these kids are trick-or-treating. It's dark, but then you got this cold figure in Michael. Ooh, I messed up my color. But you got this cold figure in Michael. What did I do to my shit? And then you look behind him, and everywhere around him is these warm, fall-looking colors, these yellows and oranges, and it's beautiful. And they also do a lot of these long takes and stuff. Like this one in particular, a couple actually. One is when Officer Hawkins finally comes across Michael, and seeing Michael walk past this fence as the police starting to come in. It's a beautiful shot. Very well done, especially with it being a nighttime shot. It's still very well lit, where you can actually see what you're looking at. And that's not with a lot of horror movies I see where you can't actually see what's going on. You're squinting. This movie doesn't have that issue. You see everything except when they want Michael to be hidden. Then you can't see him. But when it's everything else, you're able to see everything that's going on. So that was a good scene. And then another particular one where Michael's walking down the street and he walks past a house and he goes into this house, right? And he kills this lady. And you hear the baby crying, and you see him, come out from killing the lady. And you see him walk through the house, up to the baby, back out through the house. And then starts walking down the street up to the point he sees another house he wants to enter. And that was really cool. It probably could have been multiple takes, but the way it was shot, it looked like one long take. And it was great. And again, the kills in this movie so much more violent. I love him. I loved the kills in this movie. They were fantastic. And just this movie overall is probably, I wouldn't put this up on the same level as I would the original Halloween. I think I still love that more than I do any of the others. But this one is definitely great. I'm one of those few people who like 3. I actually like 3. I know a lot of people don't, but I actually liked 3 quite a bit. So I'm going to stop talking y'all's ears off, okay? I know I've been here for a long time. But I want to thank everyone for joining me. Y'all have been fantastic. Thank you, everyone who's been watching this series. 2 more to go. I'm not going to spoil what the last one's going to be. But the next one, next weekend, is a doozy. And it's not so much a horror movie This is a thriller, but no matter what, it's a very intense movie. It's going to be Don't Breathe. That's next week. Can I talk? No, I can't. That is next week's Halloween Countdown Series 2020 video. So I look forward to that. I will see you all next week. And remember, everyone, join the nation. Have a great day.